Humble girl rescues millionaire from plane crash and takes him to the hospital. When he wakes up, she reveals a secret that leaves everyone horrified. Hello and welcome to 80s Love Stories, where I, your favorite narrator, Christopher, bring you an exciting love story straight from the unforgettable 1980s. Get ready for a journey full of nostalgia and incredible twists. Today's story is truly remarkable, with an ending that's sure to touch your heart and leave you amazed. So, stay with me until the very last moment. I hope this experience is unforgettable for you, and may God bless you and your family. Now, let's get started. The harsh winter wind howled through the Montana mountains as Rachel Thompson pulled her worn denim jacket tighter around her shoulders. February 1984 was proving to be particularly brutal, but she couldn't afford to miss another shift at the small diner where she worked. Her ancient Chevy pickup truck groaned as she navigated the winding mountain road, the headlights cutting through the early morning darkness. At 23, Rachel lived alone in a modest cabin inherited from her grandmother, making ends meet by working double shifts at Hannah's Diner, the only restaurant within 20 miles. Her life was simple but honest, marked by hard work and quiet determination. The sun hadn't yet risen when she spotted something unusual through the snow-laden trees. A faint orange glow in the distance, out of place in the pristine wilderness. Rachel slowed her truck, squinting through the windshield. The glow flickered ominously, and her heart began to race as she realized what it might be. Pulling over to the shoulder, Rachel grabbed her flashlight from the glove compartment. The bitter cold bit at her face as she stepped out of the truck, her boots crunching in the fresh snow. The glow was stronger now, and she could smell smoke. Following her instincts, Rachel began trudging through the snow, thankful for her thick boots. As she got closer, the scene before her made her blood run cold. Scattered pieces of metal littered the ground, and flames flickered from what was clearly the wreckage of a small private plane. "Hello," she called out, her voice carrying through the still morning air. "Is anyone there? Can anyone hear me?" The only response was the crackling of flames and the wind whistling through the trees. Rachel moved closer, her heart pounding. The plane had broken into several pieces, but the main cabin was largely intact, though resting at an awkward angle against a cluster of pine trees. Then she heard it, a faint groan coming from inside the wreckage. Without hesitation, Rachel scrambled toward the sound. The door of the cabin was jammed, but a large tear in the fuselage created an opening she could squeeze through. The interior was dark and filled with smoke, but her flashlight beam revealed a man strapped into one of the leather seats, unconscious but alive. He was wearing an expensive suit, now torn and bloody, and seemed to be in his early 30s. A briefcase lay burst open nearby, papers scattered everywhere. Rachel checked his pulse. It was steady, but he needed medical attention immediately. "Sir, can you hear me? I'm going to get you out of here," she said, working to unbuckle his seatbelt. The man stirred slightly, but didn't respond. With strength born of desperation, Rachel managed to free him from the seat and drag him out of the wreckage. He was heavy, but she couldn't leave him there with the fire spreading. Slowly, painfully, she half-carried, half-dragged him through the snow toward her truck. Just as she got him to the vehicle, he opened his eyes briefly. In the dim light, she could see they were a striking blue. "The package," he mumbled. "Have to deliver. Important." "Don't worry about any package," Rachel said firmly, struggling to get him into the passenger seat. "We need to get you to a hospital." His eyes closed again as she finally secured him in the truck. Rachel jumped into the driver's seat and turned the key, silently praying her old Chevy wouldn't choose this moment to give out. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life. As she carefully maneuvered back onto the road, Rachel glanced at her unconscious passenger. His face was pale but handsome, with strong features and dark hair dusted with snow. Who was he? What was he doing flying in these mountains during a snowstorm? The nearest hospital was in Milton, 40 minutes away on a good day. Today, with the snow and ice, it would take longer. Rachel pressed down on the accelerator, trying to find the balance between speed and safety. The man stirred again, mumbling something incoherent. Rachel reached over and squeezed his hand. "Hold on," she said. "Just hold on. We'll get you help." She didn't know then that this chance encounter on a snowy mountain road would change both their lives forever. She couldn't have known that the man beside her was Michael Barrett, CEO of Barrett Industries, one of the largest technology companies on the East Coast. And she certainly couldn't have known about the secret she would soon discover, a secret that would shake the foundations of everything she believed in. For now, she focused on keeping her truck on the road as the snow continued to fall, unaware that destiny had just dealt her a hand that would alter the course of her life irrevocably. The fluorescent lights of Milton General Hospital buzzed overhead as Rachel sat in the waiting room, her hands still trembling slightly. The vinyl chairs and mint-green walls were a stark contrast to the wild mountain landscape she'd left behind. A small TV mounted in the corner played an episode of Magnum PEI that no one was watching. She'd called Hannah from the hospital's payphone to explain why she wouldn't make her shift at the diner. Her boss had understood. Hannah always did. "You probably saved that man's life, honey," she'd said. "Don't you worry about the diner." Rachel's worn boots had left wet marks on the linoleum floor, melting snow mixing with dried mud. Her jeans were soaked through, and her grandmother's silver locket felt cold against her skin. She hadn't even taken time to change before rushing the stranger to the hospital. Dr. Richard Kent, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and graying temples, approached her after what seemed like hours. "Ms. Thompson, the man you brought in is stable. He has a mild concussion, some bruised ribs, and a sprained wrist, but thanks to you, he'll make a full recovery." Rachel exhaled deeply, not realizing she'd been holding her breath. "Has he said anything? About who he is?" "He's still a bit groggy, but he's been asking for you, actually. Would you like to see him?" Rachel followed Dr. Kent down the corridor, past nurses in white uniforms and the occasional orderly pushing squeaking meal carts. Room 204 was private, with a window overlooking the snow-covered parking lot. The man from the plane was propped up in bed, his expensive suit replaced by a hospital gown, a bandage wrapped around his head, and his left wrist was splintered. Despite his injuries, he looked more commanding now, more present. Those striking blue eyes focused on her as she entered. "My guardian angel," he said, his voice hoarse but carrying a hint of an East Coast accent. "I'm Michael Barrett. I believe I owe you my life." "Rachel Thompson," she replied, suddenly self-conscious of her muddy jeans and disheveled appearance. Anyone would have done the same. "No," Michael said firmly. "Not anyone would have stopped. Not anyone would have braved a burning wreck to save a stranger." He shifted slightly, wincing. "Please, sit. Tell me how you found me." Rachel took the chair beside his bed and recounted the morning's events. As she spoke, she noticed Michael's expression change when she mentioned the briefcase and scattered papers. "The briefcase?" he said, tension creeping into his voice. "Did you happen to see what happened to it?" "It was destroyed in the crash. I'm sorry, I was more focused on getting you out." Michael closed his eyes briefly, his jaw tightening. "Of course, you did the right thing." But something in his tone suggested the lost briefcase meant more than he was letting on. A nurse entered with a clipboard, checking Michael's vitals. "Mr. Barrett, your wife is on her way from Boston. She should be here by evening." Rachel stood, suddenly feeling out of place. "I should go. I'm glad you're okay." "Wait," Michael called as she reached the door. "Please come back tomorrow. I'd like to properly thank you for what you did." Something in his eyes made Rachel pause. There was gratitude there, yes, but something else too. Worry, perhaps. Fear. She nodded slowly. "All right, tomorrow." As Rachel drove home in her truck, the events of the morning felt almost dreamlike. The sun had finally broken through the clouds, making the snow-covered landscape sparkle. But questions nagged at her mind. Why was Michael Barrett flying in such dangerous conditions? What was in that briefcase that concerned him so much? Back at her cabin, Rachel changed into dry clothes and lit a fire in the wood stove. Her grandmother's old radio played soft country music as she made herself a cup of instant coffee. The morning paper lay on her kitchen table, and the headline caught her eye. Barrett Industries CEO missing en route to crucial merger meeting. Rachel's hands shook as she read the article. Michael Barrett wasn't just any businessman, he was one of the most powerful men in the technology industry. Barrett Industries was pioneering personal computer development, competing with the likes of IBM and Apple, but it was the last paragraph that made her blood run cold. Barrett's disappearance comes amid rumors of corporate espionage and leaked trade secrets that could revolutionize the computer industry. Sources close to the company suggest the CEO was carrying sensitive documents at the time of his disappearance. Rachel set down her coffee cup, her mind racing. The briefcase, his concern about it, the crash in such dangerous weather, none of it felt like coincidence anymore. She walked to her window, looking out at the mountains where she'd found him. What had she really stumbled into up there in the snow? The phone rang, making her jump. When she answered, there was only static on the line. Then a click, probably just the bad weather affecting the lines, she told herself. But as darkness fell outside her cabin windows, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that saving Michael Barrett's life was only the beginning of something much bigger, and possibly much more dangerous than she could have imagined. When Rachel returned to the hospital the next day, she found Michael's room transformed. A sophisticated woman in her early 30s paced the floor in designer boots that probably cost more than Rachel's truck. Her perfectly styled blonde hair and tailored wool suit screamed old money. "Victoria Barrett," the woman said, extending a manicured hand. Her wedding ring caught the fluorescent light. "Michael's wife, thank you for saving my husband." Rachel shook her hand, acutely aware of her own calloused palms. "I just did what anyone would do." "Nonsense," Victoria said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "We're prepared to offer you a substantial reward. Name your price." Before Rachel could respond, Michael stirred in his bed. "Vicky, please. Ms. Thompson isn't here for money." Victoria's smile tightened. "Of course, I'll give you two a moment. I need to call the board members anyway." She clicked her way out of the room, leaving behind a cloud of expensive perfume. Michael looked better today, though tired. "I'm sorry about that. Victoria means well, but she sees everything as a transaction." "It's fine," Rachel said, taking the chair beside his bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I fell out of the sky." He attempted a smile, then winced. "The doctors say I can leave tomorrow, though they want me to stay in town for a few days for observation." Rachel nodded, then gathered her courage. "I saw the newspaper article about Barrett Industries and the merger." Michael's expression darkened. "Ah, so now you know who I am." "I know what the papers say. They also mentioned something about corporate espionage." Michael was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. "Rachel, there's something I need to tell you about why I was flying that night. But first," he was interrupted by a knock at the door. A man in a dark suit entered, followed by Victoria. "Mr. Barrett, I'm Agent Howard Kane, FBI." He flashed a badge. "There's we need to ask you some questions about the crash." Rachel stood to leave, but Michael caught her hand. His touch sent an unexpected warmth through her. "Stay, please." Agent Kane pulled out a small notebook. "Mr. Barrett, our investigation suggests your plane's mechanical failure wasn't an accident. Someone tampered with the fuel line." Victoria gasped. Rachel felt Michael's grip tighten on her hand. "Furthermore," Kane continued, "we found this near the crash site." He held up an evidence bag containing what looked like a small electronic device. "It's a tracking beacon. Someone wanted to know exactly where your plane went down." The implications hung heavy in the air. Someone had tried to kill Michael Barrett, or at least bring down his plane. "The briefcase," Michael said quietly. "Did you recover it?" Kane shook his head. "So no briefcase was found at the site. If there was one, it's gone now." Rachel's mind flashed back to the scattered papers she'd seen in the wreckage. Had someone reached the crash site before she found Michael? "Ms. Thompson," Kane turned to her. "Did you see anyone else in the area when you found Mr. Barrett?" "No, but—" She hesitated, remembering something. "There were tracks in the snow. I thought they were animal tracks, but thinking back, they could have been human." Victoria moved closer to Michael's bed, her face pale. "This is insane. Michael, we need to get you back to Boston as soon as possible." "He can't travel yet," Rachel protested. "The doctor said, 'I think we know what's best for my husband.'" Victoria cut in sharply. Agent Kane cleared his throat. "Actually, Mrs. Barrett, we'd prefer Mr. Barrett remain in the area while we conduct our investigation. And Miss Thompson, we may need to speak with you again." After Kane left, An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Victoria busied herself with her mobile phone, one of those new cellular models that cost a fortune. Rachel felt increasingly out of place in this world of corporate intrigue and FBI investigations. "I should go," she said, standing. "I have a shift at the diner." "Rachel," Michael called as she reached the door, "thank you for everything." Something in his voice made her turn back. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the rest of the room seemed to fade away. Then Victoria's phone beeped, breaking the spell. Walking to her truck in the hospital parking lot, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She looked around, but saw only empty cars and swirling snow. At home that night, she sat by her wood stove, thinking about Michael's intense blue eyes and the way his hand had felt holding hers. She thought about the missing briefcase and the tracking device. None of it made sense. The phone rang, making her jump. This time, when she answered, there was a voice, distorted, unrecognizable. "The man you saved has something that belongs to us. Stay out of this if you know what's good for you." The line went dead. Rachel's hands shook as she set down the receiver. Outside, snow began to fall again, thick flakes illuminated by her porch light. Somewhere in that darkness, someone was watching, waiting, and somehow she had stumbled into the middle of something much bigger and much more dangerous than a simple plane crash. She touched her grandmother's locket for comfort, remembering the old woman's words. "Trust your heart, child. It knows things your head doesn't understand yet." Right now, her heart was telling her that despite the danger, despite Victoria's cold stares and mysterious phone calls, she couldn't walk away from Michael Barrett. Not yet. Not until she understood what was really going on in these mountains. The next morning at Hannah's diner, Rachel could barely focus on serving plates of eggs and hash browns. Her mind kept drifting to the threatening phone call and Michael's unfinished revelation. The small restaurant buzzed with its usual breakfast crowd, truckers, locals, and the occasional skier heading to the slopes. The bell above the door chimed, and Rachel nearly dropped her coffee pot. Michael Barrett stood in the doorway, looking somehow both out of place and perfectly natural in his expensive casual wear. A light stubble had formed on his jaw, softening his corporate appearance. "You shouldn't be out of the hospital," she said, approaching his table. "I convinced them to discharge me early." He smiled, though she noticed he moved carefully as he sat. "Victoria's gone back to Boston to handle some business matters. I'm staying at the Pine Valley Inn." Rachel poured him coffee without asking. "And the FBI?" "Still investigating." "Rachel." He lowered his voice. "Have you received any strange calls?" She hesitated, then nodded. Michael's face darkened. "I was afraid of that. We need to talk, but not here. I get off at 3. I'll wait." And he did, nursing cups of coffee and watching her work with an intensity that made her both nervous and oddly thrilled. When her shift ended, they walked to his rental car, a sleek black Lincoln Town car that stood out among the pickup trucks in the parking lot. "Syed, let's drive," he said. "Somewhere private." Rachel directed him to her favorite spot, a clearing overlooking the valley. The afternoon sun made the snow sparkle like diamonds. They sat in the idling car, the heater keeping the Montana winter at bay. "What I'm about to tell you could put you in danger," Michael began. "But you're already involved, and you deserve to know the truth." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small notebook. "This was in my briefcase the night of the crash. I managed to slip it into my pocket before you found me. It contains proof that someone inside Barrett Industries has been selling our technology secrets to foreign competitors." "Who?" "I thought I knew, but now—" He ran a hand through his hair. "The evidence pointed to one of our senior engineers, but the crash, the tracking device, it suggests someone much higher up is involved." "Victoria?" Rachel asked softly. Michael's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "I don't want to believe it, but she's been acting strange ever since I started investigating the leaks, and she has access to everything." Rachel touched the notebook. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I trust you. You saved my life without knowing who I was or what was at stake. That kind of pure intention is rare in my world." His blue eyes met hers. "And because I need your help." Before he could elaborate, Rachel spotted movement in the rearview mirror. "Michael, There's a car coming up the road. He tensed. We need to go now. The Lincoln's V8 engine roared to life as Michael threw it into gear. The other car, a dark sedan, accelerated behind them. Rachel gripped her seat as Michael navigated the snowy mountain roads with surprising skill. In the glove compartment, he said through gritted teeth, there's a cassette tape. Get it. Rachel found the tape labeled Property of Barrett Industries, Project Aurora. That's what they're really after, Michael said, taking a sharp turn that made the tires squeal. The notebook was just part of it. This tape contains the complete evidence, including recorded conversations. I was taking it to the FBI when my plane went down. Their pursuer was gaining. Rachel's heart pounded as she watched the sedan grow larger in the mirror. Suddenly, she recognized the road they were on. Michael, turn right at the next fork. He did without questioning her. The road narrowed, becoming little more than a logging trail. The sedan followed, but now it struggled with the rough terrain. There's an old mine entrance up ahead, Rachel said. The road looks like it goes through, but there's actually a sharp turn. Locals know about it, but... Michael smiled grimly. But our friends back there don't. They reached the turn just as the sun dipped behind the mountains. Michael expertly maneuvered the Lincoln around the bend. In the fading light, their pursuers missed the turn and skidded into a snowbank. We need to get somewhere safe, Michael said, not slowing down. They'll have others looking for us. Rachel thought quickly. My cabin, it's off the grid. My grandmother made sure of that. No phone line, no electricity except what the generator provides. As they drove through the gathering darkness, Rachel's mind raced. She thought about the corporate espionage, the attempt on Michael's life, and now this car chase. But mostly, she thought about the way Michael had said, I trust you, and how those simple words had made her feel more alive than she had in years. She snuck a glance at his profile, strong and determined in the dashboard light. What was she doing, getting involved in this dangerous game of corporate intrigue? And why did it feel so right? The cassette tape sat heavy in her lap, its secrets still untold. As they pulled up to her cabin, Rachel realized there was no turning back now. Whatever was on this tape, whatever truth Michael was protecting, she was part of it now. And somewhere in the Montana night, their pursuers were regrouping, planning their next move. The game was far from over. Rachel's cabin felt different with Michael Barrett in it. The humble space, with its wood-burning stove and hand-sewn curtains, seemed to shrink in the presence of his natural authority. She lit the kerosene lamps, their warm glow creating dancing shadows on the log walls. Your grandmother built this place, Michael asked, examining the sturdy construction. Every log. Rachel loaded more wood into the stove. She was something else. Moved here in '52 after my grandfather died. Everyone said a woman couldn't survive alone in these mountains. Sounds familiar, Michael smiled. You're a lot like her, aren't you? Rachel busied herself making coffee on the wood stove to hide her blush. We should listen to that tape. She pulled out her old battery-powered boombox, a Christmas gift from 3 years ago. Michael inserted the cassette with trembling hands. The tape crackled to life, and a woman's voice filled the cabin. February 12, 1984. Meeting with Korean representatives regarding Project Aurora specifications. Rachel's heart stopped. It was Victoria's voice. Michael's face had gone pale. I knew, but hearing it... The recording continued, revealing detailed discussions about selling Barrett Industries' revolutionary computer designs to foreign competitors. Victoria wasn't just involved, she was the mastermind. The personal computer market is about to explode, Victoria's voice explained. With these designs, you'll be ahead of IBM, Apple, as everyone. Worth every penny of the 100 millionaires, wouldn't you say? Michael stopped the tape, his hands shaking. I built that company from nothing. Victoria was a secretary when I met her. I taught her everything about the business, trusted her with everything. Rachel touched his arm gently. Why would she do this? Power, money. The company's in my name. She's just Mrs. Barrett. This was her chance to have something of her own, no matter the cost. A floorboard creaked outside. Rachel immediately killed the lanterns. They sat in darkness, hearts pounding, footsteps on the porch, a shadow past the window. Michael pulled Rachel behind the large stone chimney just as the door burst open. Two men entered, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. "Check everywhere," a familiar voice ordered. "The tape has to be here." Agent Howard Kane, the FBI agent, was working with Victoria. Rachel and Michael pressed against the chimney stones. She could feel his heart racing where their bodies touched. His arm around her waist was both protective and trembling. The men ransacked the cabin methodically. Rachel watched her grandmother's precious items being tossed aside, but didn't dare move. The beam of a flashlight passed inches from their hiding spot. "Nothing," one man growled. "Car's still warm, though. They can't be far." "Spread out. Check the woods," Kane ordered. "Victoria wants them found tonight." The men left, but Rachel and Michael remained frozen in place, listening to footsteps crunching in the snow outside. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, Michael whispered, "We need to get out of here. They'll be back." "There's a cellar," Rachel breathed. "Under the floorboards. Grandmother's emergency exit. It leads to a cave system." They moved silently in the darkness, Rachel leading them to a concealed trapdoor. The cellar smelled of earth and old roots. Rachel felt along the wall until she found the metal handle of another door. "It comes out near Miller's Creek," and she explained, "about 2 miles through the caves." Michael touched her shoulder in the darkness. "Rachel, I'm sorry I brought this danger to your door." "I'm not." The words surprised her even as she said them. "I mean, I've spent my whole life in these mountains, playing it safe, staying small. Maybe it was time for something to shake things up." His hand found her face in the dark, thumb gently tracing her cheek. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. Her heart thundered in her chest, but a crash from above broke the spell. They were searching the cabin again. "This way," Rachel whispered, pulling the heavy door open. "Watch your step." They descended into the cave system, the sounds from above growing fainter. Rachel knew these tunnels from childhood explorations. Every twist, every turn was mapped in her memory. What she didn't know was that at the end of these tunnels waited a revelation that would change everything. A truth about Michael Barrett that even he didn't know, and that would make Victoria's betrayal pale in comparison. As they made their way through the darkness, the tape secure in Michael's pocket, Rachel thought about choices and consequences. One simple act of kindness, stopping to help a crashed plane, had pulled her into a web of corporate espionage and betrayal. But it had also brought her Michael, and with him, a chance at a life less ordinary. Behind them, flashlight beams probed the cellar. Ahead lay uncertainty and danger. But for now, in the quiet darkness of the cave, with Michael's hand firmly holding hers, Rachel felt strangely, perfectly alive. The cave opening at Miller's Creek revealed a world transformed by moonlight and fresh snow. Rachel and Michael emerged into the bitter cold, their breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The moon cast long shadows across the pristine white landscape, making the familiar terrain seem alien and dangerous. "There's an old ranger station about a mile from here," Rachel whispered. "We can use the radio to call for help." They trudged through knee-deep snow, staying under the cover of pine trees. Michael's injuries were clearly causing him pain, but he pressed on without complaint. The ranger station's dark silhouette eventually emerged through the trees, a haven in the wilderness. Rachel knew where the spare key was hidden, another piece of local knowledge that came from a lifetime in these mountains. Inside, the station was cold and musty, filled with maps and old rescue equipment. A calendar on the wall still showed January 1984, its pages untouched. The radio crackled to life under Rachel's experienced hands. She'd learned to use it during the bad winter of '82, when she'd helped coordinate rescue efforts after a massive snowstorm. But before she could send a message, Michael grabbed her wrist. "Wait, look at this." He was holding an old newspaper he'd found on the desk, dated 1954. The headline read, "Local woman dies in tragic accident at Barrett Lumber Mill." Rachel's heart stopped. The woman in the grainy photograph was her grandmother. "Your grandmother worked at a Barrett lumber mill?" Michael asked, his voice strange. "No, That's impossible. She moved here in '52 after grandfather died. She built the cabin herself. Rachel's voice trailed off as she read further. The article detailed how Sarah Thompson had been working as a secretary at the Barrett lumber mill when she was killed in an industrial accident. The mill's owner, Thomas Barrett, had personally attended the funeral. "Thomas Barrett," Michael said quietly. "My father." Rachel's hands trembled as she read on. The article mentioned that Sarah Thompson had left behind a young daughter, Rachel's mother, who had later died giving birth to Rachel. "There's more," Michael said, pulling out a folded letter that had fallen from the newspaper. It was written in a feminine hand, dated just days before the accident. "Dearest Thomas, I can't keep this secret any longer. Marie needs to know the truth about her father. Your wife may never forgive you, but our daughter deserves to know. I'll tell her after the shareholders' meeting next week. With love, always. Sarah." Rachel felt the world spin. Marie, her mother's name. Thomas Barrett, Michael's father. Your grandmother, and my father. Michael's voice was hoarse. "That would make your mother, your half-sister," Rachel finished, her voice barely a whisper. The implications crashed over them like a wave. Rachel staggered back, gripping the edge of the desk for support. "That means your uncle," Michael said, looking as shocked as she felt. The moment was shattered by the sound of vehicles approaching. Headlights swept across the station's windows. "They found us," Rachel said, but her mind was still reeling from the revelation. Michael moved to the window, his face ghost-white in the moonlight. "It's Victoria and Kane." Rachel's training kicked in. Years of surviving in these mountains had taught her to act first and process later. She grabbed Michael's arm and pulled him toward the back door. "There's a maintenance shed behind the station. We can hide there until they pass." But as they stepped outside, a flashlight beam caught them. "Stop right there!" Kane's voice rang out across the snow. Victoria emerged from one of the vehicles, her designer boots inappropriate for the deep snow. "Michael, darling, enough of this game. Just give me the tape and we can all go home." Michael's hand found Rachel's in the darkness. The touch felt different now, charged with their newfound knowledge. "It's over, Victoria. The FBI, the real FBI, is already on their way." Victoria's laugh was cold as the mountain air. "You're bluffing. Agent Kane has made sure no one outside this mountain knows anything." "Check your mobile phone," Michael said calmly. "If it's working." Victoria's face changed as she pulled out her cellular phone, finding no signal. Rachel smiled slightly. She knew there was no reception this far up the mountain. But Michael's confidence suggested something else was at play. A distant sound made everyone freeze. Helicopter rotors. "That would be the actual FBI," Michael said. "I called them before we left the hospital, told them everything. They've been tracking us, waiting for Victoria to make her move." The helicopter appeared over the ridge, its searchlight cutting through the darkness. More vehicles could be heard approaching, but these had sirens. Victoria's composure cracked. She turned to run, but Kane caught her arm. "Don't," he said. "It's over." As federal agents swarmed the scene, Rachel and Michael stood in the swirling snow, still processing their own earth-shattering discovery. The truth about their connection had changed everything, making their growing feelings for each other impossible. Yet as the helicopter landed and Victoria was led away in handcuffs, Rachel felt Michael's hand still holding hers, neither of them quite ready to let go despite knowing they must. Spring came early to Montana that year. The snow melted, revealing the first green shoots pushing through the dark earth. Rachel stood on her cabin's porch, watching the sunrise paint the mountains in shades of gold and pink. 3 months had passed since that night at the ranger station. Victoria and Kane were awaiting trial. The corporate espionage scandal had rocked the technology industry, and Barrett Industries was slowly rebuilding under Michael's careful guidance. Rachel hadn't seen him since the night they discovered the truth about their connection. They'd both needed time to process, to grieve for what might have been, to accept the new reality of their relationship. The morning paper lay on her porch, delivered by the new route that now reached her cabin. The headline caught her eye. Barrett Industries, CEO establishes memorial foundation for victims of industrial accidents. Below was a picture of Michael at the foundation's launch, looking dignified in his suit. The article mentioned that the Foundation's first act was to establish a trust for the families of workers lost in Barrett lumber mill accidents, dating back to the 1950s. Rachel touched her grandmother's locket, which now held new meaning. Inside, she'd found a tiny photo of her mother as a baby who had Thomas Barrett's eyes, the same eyes she saw every morning in her mirror, the same eyes she'd seen in Michael. The sound of a car approaching made her look up. The familiar black Lincoln Town car emerged from the tree line, but this time she didn't feel fear. She'd been expecting this visit. Michael stepped out, looking different from the corporate titan she'd first met. More human somehow, more real. He carried a small box under his arm. "The snow's finally gone," he said, climbing the porch steps. "Spring comes late up here, but when it comes, it means it." They stood in awkward silence, 3 months of unspoken words hanging between them. "I found these in my father's study," Michael finally said, opening the box. Inside were letters, photographs, and a small diary. "It seems my father loved your grandmother very much. He never got over her death." Rachel took out a photograph, her grandmother, young and beautiful, laughing at something off camera. On the back was written Sarah Summer, 53, in Thomas Barrett's handwriting. "He wanted to marry her," Michael continued, "but the scandal would have destroyed the company. They agreed to wait until after the shareholders are meeting, then the accident. She died before she could tell my mother the truth," Rachel finished. Michael nodded. "My father buried himself in work after that, became cold, distant. Now, I understand why." He paused. "I also understand why my heart recognized you before my head did." Rachel looked up sharply. "Michael." "I know," he said gently. "I know we can't." "What we felt, but your family, Rachel. The only real family I have left. I don't want to lose that too." Rachel felt tears threatening. "What do we do now?" "We honor them. Sarah, Thomas, your mother. We build something good from all of this." He pulled out some papers. "I want you on the Foundation's board. We'll help other families, prevent other accidents, make their story mean something." Rachel looked at the papers, then at Michael. The attraction they'd felt was transforming into something different, but no less powerful, the connection of shared blood, shared purpose. "I'd like that," she said softly. They sat on the porch as the sun climbed higher, looking through the box of memories, piecing together their shared history. Michael told her stories about Thomas Barrett that showed a different side of the man, the side only a son could know. Rachel shared memories of her grandmother, the strength and wisdom that had shaped her life. As morning turned to afternoon, Rachel felt a peace she hadn't expected. The mystery that had brought Michael into her life had been solved, but it had given her something precious in return: family, purpose, and a chance to honor those who had loved in secret so many years ago. "Stay for coffee?" she asked, rising. Michael smiled, and in that smile, she saw her grandmother, her mother, and the future they would build together. "I'd like that," he said. Inside the cabin, Rachel put the kettle on the stove, just as her grandmother had done countless times before. Outside, the mountains stood eternal, keepers of secrets no longer, while inside, two people who had almost been something else became something just as meaningful: family. The coffee they shared that morning marked not an ending but a beginning. Spring had come to the mountains at last, bringing with it new growth, new understanding, and the promise of healing that comes with truth finally told. Thank you for watching today's story. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel to relive the magic of the 80s every day with our heartfelt stories. May God bless you and your family, and don't forget to click on the video popping up on the screen right now. It's another totally rad story you won't want to miss. See you in the next video, and stay awesome.